Good morning. Thank you guys for tuning in. You've reached the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I appreciate it. I always like when people tune in. Got a great show for you guys today. It's going to be really interesting. I suppose we say we have a great show every week, but this week I think it may actually be true. We're going to talk about foreclosure defense, which you know is one of my favorite things to talk about. As you guys know, I do that for free. I do foreclosure defense for people all the time, have for better than 30 years, and we do it totally for free. So if you do find yourself you're having a problem with a mortgage or any real estate problem, today's going to be specifically about foreclosure defense. But if you are having a problem with a mortgage or anything else, please give me a call. I give out my personal cell phone number on the air all the time. That number is 661-714-1400. The number again is 661-714-1400. And that is my personal cell phone. Please don't call me while I'm on the air, but anytime thereafter. And I do answer that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you do call and I don't answer, please send me a text message and I will call you back as soon as I can. I do sleep and shower and do things like that on occasion, even go to the movie on occasion. So if it takes me a while, just hang in there, but I promise I will call you back. Okay, so let's talk about foreclosure defense today. There's a lot of stuff going on in the market right now. None of it's really terribly good news for those people who are having any sort of an issue, because the number of delinquencies is going way up across the country. We're starting to see not NODs yet, not notices of default, not foreclosure actions quite yet, although that number is going up as well. But there is a wave of people who are 30, 60, and 90 days behind, particularly with FHA and VA loans. We talked about that a little bit last time, but that is one of the harbingers of a dangerous real estate market, because the number of delinquencies is quickly followed by the number of foreclosure filings. And those are up as well, and they're going to come up some more. And when you add to that the number of bankruptcy filings is also up, we got not a great economic circumstance we're going into, and it's largely because of the interest rate. The interest rate is just too high, and that's what's powering all of this nonsense, because you can't refinance your house if you have a 2.5% or a 4.5% interest rate, and you're already in trouble and you're looking at 7% on a refi. So that's the stuff that has to kind of give. But let's talk about foreclosure defense specifically. I want to give you guys some specific tips, some specific things you can use yourself. You can always call me and I'll be happy to help you with the case, but some specific stuff you can do. Number one is if you find yourself behind, or you know you're going to fall behind. Well, first of all, let's talk about some time, because that's going to be important. First thing, most lenders in California are not going to file a notice of default even if you're 90 days late. They will do it when you get to be 120 days late. The reason for that is, well, there are laws about that, but the reason for that is they don't want to spend the money, the energy, the time to start a foreclosure if you're just going to bail it out, because it costs them money too, most of which they pass along to you. But that's not the way it works. So you're typically going to have to be about 4 months behind before they file an NOD. NOD stands for Notice of Default. That is the first public step in a foreclosure, that it is a lawsuit where the bank is telling you or telling the court that they are foreclosing on your house because of lack of payment. So that is what a foreclosure is in California. It's called an NOD, a Notice of Default. And those of you taking notes, an NOD has to go for 90 days before it's fully seasoned. At the end of 90 days, on the 91st day or thereafter, the bank can then file a notice of sale. Different states, different rules. This is California. They will then file a notice of sale. Notice of sale goes 21 days, and on the 21st day or thereafter, they can then set the sale date. They will then conduct the sale. In other words, you have 111 days, 90 plus 21, 111 days, worst case, from the filing of an NOD until they actually conduct the foreclosure sale. So keep that in mind, 111 days, 90 and then 21. And the farther up that river you get, the fewer options you have to bail it out. So that first 90 days is crucial after they file the NOD. Preferably you get started with this before they file it. But if they've already filed it, you're in that slot. If you're not out of that, then the next is an NOS, notice of sale, and that you only have 21 days. So 90, 21. Now, what I would suggest is, as soon as you know you're going to be delinquent, certainly as soon as you're 30, 60, 90 days behind, you need to contact your bank. Whoever the bank is, whoever the servicer is, to use the correct verbiage, the mortgage servicer, you need to contact them and say, hey, I'm having a problem. And what I need to know is, what are my options? What you specifically want to ask for, the magic words, what are my loss mitigation options? That's banker talk for how do I get myself out of trouble and not lose my house? They're looking for loss mitigation options. And the reason I tell you to do that is because every bank knows that they are better off keeping the house and keeping you paying than they are foreclosing. I don't care what business school you went to, you are still going to be better off in 99% of the cases keeping the client in the house. Now, I want to keep the client in the house because I want to keep them housed. The bank should want to keep them in the house because that's how they continue to get paid. So we're not working across purposes. We just have to find a way to square it away so the bank will accept what we want them to do, right? So a lot of times it's explaining to the bank, this is really better for you as well. So the first thing you want to do is start talking to them, ask them about loss mitigation options, and you want to communicate. The other thing, take notes. banks, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but banks are not honest arbiters, whether it's because of acts, because they don't know any better or because they're intentionally being malicious. I couldn't tell you, but the result is the same. A lie of omission is still a lie, just the same. Malicious behavior out of incompetence is still malicious behavior, just the same. So understand who you're dealing with. Most of the people you talk to at a bank, the people who are working intake on a bank and loss mitigation, once you get to that department, that's why you got to start there. So you talk to, are very poorly paid. There are exceptions, thank goodness, but most of the time they're very poorly paid and they're very bad at their job and they don't care. And the reason for that is very simple. If they could have mastered the phrase, would you like fries with that? They wouldn't be working in loss mitigation at a bank. They'd be serving hamburgers at your local Burger King and making more money that way and having less stress and aggravation. So that's the caliber of person you're working with by and large. And like I said, there are exceptions and thank goodness for those people. And hopefully you get one of those. But you want to get into loss mitigation. You want to start to communicate. You want to ask them, what options do you have? How do I get out of this mess? Can I do a loan modification? Can I do a deferment, which is where they put the money on the back end? What can I do a refinance? What options do I have? Start there, but take notes. Who did you talk to? What is their name? What is their employee number? What is the date? What is the time? And it doesn't have to be, you're not a stenographer, but just take a couple of notes about what they told you, because a written record is incredibly important, both for you and for them. It is incredibly, incredibly important because, and I hope I'm not shocking anybody here, a lot of times what the bank will tell you, it's not what goes in their record. If it's not in their record, they will say they didn't say it. Now, they say they tape everything, but you'll never get your hands on those tapes. They just don't ever seem to have them. So yeah, communicate, take notes. Here's what you want to ask for. Let's get to the nitty gritty of this. Always ask for 4 things. Off the top, we do this with every file that comes in my office, just pro forma. 4 things. You want a copy of the note, not the deed of trust, but the actual note. Those are the terms of the loan that you signed when you took out the loan. You want a copy of the accounting, going back to the inception of the note. You want a copy of the assignments. When a loan is transferred from bank A to bank B, there's something called an assignment of title that is produced. And you should have copies of them. The law is they're supposed to be sent to you. But unfortunately, there's nothing the banks don't have to prove they sent it to you. So since you as the consumer can't prove that you didn't get something, it's a logical fallacy. You can't prove you didn't receive something. It means they don't have to prove it, essentially. They just say they will, and the court gives them the latitude to just say that. You can't prove they didn't. So the assignments, when it went from bank A to bank B, you likely weren't told, but the county should still have the record, and the bank should absolutely be able to produce that record. And then the 4th thing is you want the owner of the loan. You want the owner or the investor of the loan, and you want to find out their phone number, their name. Now, a lot of times it's a nameless, faceless, hedge fund or something like that. But occasionally you get a guy named Larry out of San Francisco. And when it's a guy named Larry, we get it fixed every time. Every single time. Because you can talk to a human being about this. It's not the same as talking to a bank. So if you have one of those, very, very good. I've literally, in 30 years, there's only been one time in 30 years where I was able to talk to the individual, an actual individual who actually held the note, and we weren't able to work out a deal. So we've got a pretty good track record with that. So count yourself lucky. So again, from the top, you want the note, prove that the debt exists. You want the accounting, prove that the amount that they're asking for is correct. The assignments, prove that they have the right to collect this debt. And the owner, so that you can talk to whoever the owner of the debt is if you get that opportunity. So the note, the accounting, the assignments, and the owner of the loan. Those things must be given to you if you ask for them. You want to ask for them in writing. You would do what's called a QWR, which stands for Qualified Written Request, which just means you send it in writing. So what you want to do is you want to write a letter. You want to put on that letter your name, your address, the loan number. Banks do everything by loan number. And just a quick paragraph. I don't want to lose my house. What options do I have? And I want the note. I want the accounting, going back to the inception of the note. I want the assignments, and I want the owner of the loan. Please, you can ask for it nicely. Short letter, very straightforward. They do not need your life story. They do not need to know at this point how you got behind, why you got behind. It doesn't matter. You just need to say, I want to keep my house. What are my options? And give me these 4 pieces of data. They have to produce them within 30 days. So that's where you start. And once you have the data in, you look for reversible error. So what I would suggest is, if you want help doing this, give me a call. I'll help you. I'll walk you through the process. If you want me to take the file, I will. If you want to do it yourself, and I'll show you how to do it, that's fine too. Whatever works best for you, we're happy to help. We're a resource. Call me anytime. I can be reached at 661-714-1400. Now, before I wrap up the first segment of the show, I want to make sure you guys stay through the break, because our Assemblywoman, Pilar Schiavo, excuse me, I mispronounced it, Pilar Schiavo, our Assemblywoman from District 20, did something fantastic fantastic. And this is absolutely going to help with foreclosure defense. There's a bill called AB 2424. We discussed it last time. We're going to discuss it more with the author of the bill. So this is really, really good stuff. Definitely listen to the break, because if you're in trouble, you're going to want to know this. AB 2424 is the biggest piece of legislation, the best piece of legislation we've had to defend against foreclosures in California since the Homeowner Bill of Rights. It is that big a deal. So listen through the break. I'm Rich. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Listen to the break. Come back. We'll have Pilar. It'll be great. It'll be good stuff. Please listen to the break. Thanks. Bye. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for listening through the break. You've reached The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS, AM 1220. AM 1220, FM 98.1. I should have that burned into my head by now. Your hometown station. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. We have in studio today special guest, our Assemblywoman, Pilar Schiavo, who is Assemblywoman for District 40. I keep saying 20, District 40, which includes the Santa Clarita Valley and the northwest corner of the San Fernando Valley, right?
Correct.
Perfect. You are one of the founders of Bridge to Home, which those of you who listen know, we promote Bridge to Home at every opportunity because they do great work and they do it in our community here. The money gets spent, when you donate to Bridge to Home, the money gets spent in here in our community. It's a big, big deal. It's not one of these pie in the sky sort of things. And they do great work. So if you're looking for a place to donate, definitely talk to them. I think they really do fantastic work. I've seen a lot of people helped by them. Pilar also serves as the chair of the Assembly Committee on Military and Veterans Affairs, also serves on the Banking Committee, Finance Committee, Budget Committee, Health Committee, Utilities and Energy, and Emergency Management Committees. Thank you for finding the time to do this. I appreciate that, because those are all much more important than what we're doing here today. So thank you. In your first term in office, you delivered over $1 million into the pockets of community members through assistance with state agencies and $95 million in district investments, addressing school safety, supporting small businesses, creating infrastructure jobs, creating veterans housing. The list goes on. Hang with me. Improving clean air and water supply, increasing healthcare delivery, addressing housing and homelessness, and bolstering community safety. I'm sure there's more. I think that was tucked down.
You stretched that $95 million.
Yeah.
Do a lot of things.
There's a lot there. And on top of everything else, I was told I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, and I'll do this at the top so I don't forget, you're doing a tacos and taxes event to help people who have lower than average incomes, under $67,000 a year, file their taxes. And you're doing that on March 9th, and it's already sold out. Or, well, not sold out, selling tickets, but it's already full.
Full, yes.
Yeah,
I know.
So.
We're happy to help some folks. And if people still need help and they can't get into the event, they can call our office, and we know about other resources for them as well.
Oh, that is awesome. Because I would have liked to have had help with my taxes when I was in that tax bracket.
Yeah.
Now I have to pay much more to get them done, and I still don't entirely understand them. But anyway, let's move on. The reason we asked you in today, especially because my show's about real estate, and as everybody knows, I do foreclosure defense for free for people, and I keep people out of trouble. And we do a lot of that sort of stuff. I'm very proud of the work that we do. And you are the sole, near as I can tell, the sole author for probably the most important piece of legislation we've seen in the last decade in California regarding foreclosure defense. Because we're going to talk about something called AB 2424. Don't turn away because I said AB 2424. Relax. You're going to want to hear this. Trust me, it's important. I know I'm giving you something that sounds like math homework. It's not that. It's not civics. It's not math. But listen, if you're in trouble, you're going to want to hear this, because this is changing the way foreclosures are handled in the state, and it is a big, big screaming deal. It is such a big deal that according to no less an authority than a guy named Robert Bloom, who's CAR's supervising senior counsel, who is a great guy, listen to his podcast all the time. We've actually talked once or twice, but he's very dry. He's an attorney for CAR. As you might imagine, he's kind of a just the facts man
right,
kind of a guy.
Right.
And he actually called this the best law of 2025. I've heard him refer to laws as good or bad. I've never heard him say something the best law, like it was an award show. But I think he's right. I agree with him. I think it is the best law of 2025. Because it's going to change the way things work. So rather than me explaining it, we'll dive right in. What is AB 2424, and why am I so ecstatic about it?
Well, we're hoping it's going to save people from having their homes taken from them by banks. That's really what the goal is. A lot of folks, we heard a lot of seniors when we were going through the bill process who had invested for decades in their homes and then fell on hard times, and then the bank would come in and sweep up their home before they even had a chance to sell it and regain their equity out of it. So this bill means that banks have to allow owners an opportunity to sell their home. So they have to get 45 days to be able to, if the bank's trying to foreclose on someone, they have to give them an extra 45 days if they show that they're putting it up for sale.
So you get a month and a half to sell. Yeah.
So you get a month and a half to sell. And in California, that should be a good amount of time. And then it gives those owners really a chance to get that equity back because, banks will often really lowball it. They'll sell it for, rock bottom prices. Maybe they'll buy it back themselves and then flip it and sell it for huge gains.
Which, by the way, is wholly illegal. If you work for a bank, you're not allowed to buy the house back in foreclosure and flip it yourself. And it happens all the time. There are a couple of guys from Wells Fargo, of course it's Wells Fargo, that went to jail behind this a couple of years ago doing exactly that. Yeah. On average in Southern California, when a house goes to foreclosure, it sells for about 60%, 40, 50% of the appraised value, just because it's a foreclosure. And that's if you're doing cash on the barrel. That's before it comes to market, that they're marketing houses as a resale. That's if you actually buy it at foreclosure sale. And people are getting taken advantage of it. I'm sure you're aware of the statistics well, but AARP did a really good, just before the pandemic, did a really good survey. And what they came back with, sort of one of those conclusions that we all knew was going to happen anyway, but it's nice to have the data, that 98 point something, it's 98.5, I think, percent of all people surveyed said that they will need, not want, but require the equity built up in a house over time to be able to retire. And when they say retire, they're talking about food, clothing, and housing. That's it. So that's nobody's water skiing behind a yacht. That's just the requirement, food, clothing, and housing. In order to be able to meet that requirement, they need the equity built in a house. And if you lose that, you're done.
You have nothing.
We're talking just before we came on air. People who lose a house in foreclosure rarely buy another one. So if you go through that trauma and you lose a house in foreclosure, you're out of the game. It's because it's twice as hard to get back in. And if you don't do that, when you get to be 65 or 75 or whenever it is for you, you're not going to have that. And without that, you're not retiring in California. You're just not.
Exactly.
I hope you have a relative living someplace else.
Exactly. And when someone, bought a home 30, 40 years ago maybe, and so their payment is hundreds of dollars a month, the idea that you're going to be able to just buy a new home for many thousands of dollars a month at this point, there's no way that they can do it. I mean, we, had folks who are just living off Social Security, $20,000 a year. And this one woman who spoke at our press conference, actually, when we were announcing the bill here in Santa Clarita, she was a widow. Her husband had died. She fell on hard times, had a hard time keeping up with finances, started, missing payments. Scammer came in and said, "Oh, we're going to help you save your home."
Yeah.
They refinanced her home with huge balloon payment of over $1 million in a year.
Vulture
and
capitalist.
Then, of course, she couldn't pay it. So then they raised her interest rate to 25%. And she couldn't pay that. And so then they foreclosed on her. And she had a home in San Francisco, which was worth, $850, $1 million.
Yeah.
She got a check for a penny on that home.
Just to add insult to injury.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah, we see stories like that all the time in my office. And those of you guys who listen to the show regularly, you know that I do this sort of stuff. I fix this sort of stuff, and we do it for free. And one of the reasons we do it for free is because when you're in trouble, especially if you have equity, it's like painting a target on your back for every low-life scumbag scammer that has a cell phone and a computer access, because they come after you like crazy. They come out of the woodwork. Let me just say this so you guys understand this. I know we've talked about it before. No one is supposed to charge you upfront for foreclosure defense. Period. They shouldn't charge you at all, in my view, but they are not allowed to charge you up front. And the only reason they can collect any money is if they get you a positive outcome. If they do not get a positive outcome, you should not be charged. Now, if you have been charged, you can call me. I'll point you in the right direction. I'm sure you can call your office as well. But yeah, you need to talk to the DA's office if that happens, because that's just where you also should talk to, if they're licensed, you should also talk to the DRE about it. But I can point you in the right direction for all of that good stuff, because you should not be charged up front. Again, you shouldn't be charged at all. We do foreclosure defense for free. It's one of the reasons we do it for free, so that our clients understand that our goals and theirs are the same. So yeah, the scammers come out of the woodwork. It's absolutely crazy.
It is.
But AB 2424 is going to have a lot to do with that. So my next question here, which you already kind of learned into, is who does it help? I think the answer to that is everyone who owns a home.
It helps a lot. Yeah.
And what it does help you, to be specific with you guys, what happens now is, let's say you're at that foreclosure sale date, and the foreclosure sale date has been set, and it's 21 days from now. You just got the notice, and they're doing it as quickly as they can. As long as you're in excess, and please correct me if I got this wrong, you wrote the bill after all. If you're in excess of 5 days of the foreclosure sale date, so on day number 6, you can submit a listing contract with a licensed California broker, and you have to either show proof, or do you have to actually show proof it's already in the MLF, or just tell them you're going to put it in?
The listing contract.
Yeah, you have the listing contract submission. Okay. So you have to, and you also have to start the marketing. So you give them the listing contract, and it goes to the trustee, not necessarily the bank, although I'd send it to both. And they have to postpone the foreclosure sale date by at least 45 days. And that gives you time to sell the house. Now, if you still don't want to, you probably cover your ears for this part because we're misusing your law a little bit. If you're trying, you do that to sell the house, it gives you 45 days. And if you're still trying to save the house, you can still pursue loss mitigation efforts while you're selling the house. There's no reason you can't have options. Now, at the end of that 45-day period, if it's 5 days in advance of the next sale date and you can present a sales contract, then you get another 45 days to close that escrow. So in effect, and you lose 5 days coming and going, but in effect, you get 80 additional days in what was a 111-day process. So now that process is now bumped out to 191 days. That's huge. That gives us an extra 80 days to solve the problem before you lose your house. And this is a huge thing. And if you guys don't get this, 111 days, most clients when they come in the office, they waste about 60 of those before they get to me. Before they go seek help. So they have about 30 days before they're going to notice a sale, and about 21 days after that. So most people have about 40 to 45 days before the end is near, before the end comes. And that is not sufficient time usually to mount a defense. But now you can do this and you can extend it either for a sale, so you sell it before it goes to foreclosure, or if you misuse it a little bit because you're still trying to do loss mitigation stuff, this gives you an extra 80 days. That's massive. That is absolutely massive. We've already started using this, I think about January 5th, we started using this in my office, the day we heard about it. We've already got 2 clients now who've already used the bill and have already been to the trust. We had to explain to a trustee what it was, which I thought was fantastic. So thank you for that. Great. It's always fun to educate a trustee. But they told us, no, absolutely not. We're out of our minds. I said, no, I think you need to look into this. And followed by a phone call saying, yeah, fine, we'll push back 45 days. Now, the reason that's nice, I don't want you guys understand this to split this hair. The trustee is the person who's hired by the bank to conduct the sale. So they're the ones who are closest at ground level to the actual sale, whereas the bank just hires them to go do it. Now, they will always tell you that they only take orders from the banks until this, because they are very much, if you're a trustee company, you are very much litigation adverse. You're definitely worried about that. And this bill scares them. They're not entirely sure. They don't have their footing yet. So they just figure, well, we'll postpone it because we're not sure what we're supposed to do here, which is great. I hope they never figure it out. Keep doing that. That's a fabulous attitude for them to have because we use that time. So that is the big difference. You get an extra 80 days out of this. So those of you guys who can hear me understand this is huge. This makes a massive, massive, massive difference.
And the other component that I just want to highlight too is that if they are not, if the homeowner is not able to sell it within those 45 days and the bank does foreclose, they have to offer it at 67% of the fair market value. Yeah. We tried for a higher amount and we had to fight tooth and nail to get 67. But at least, but sometimes they're selling it way undervalued. Yeah. And people aren't getting anything, maybe not even covering their loan, right? And so this means that, at least you will have a better chance of getting back some value on your home and a nest egg to be able to move forward and prevent homelessness.
Yeah, exactly. Well, knowing a little bit about how the system works, not nearly as much as you do, obviously, but knowing a little bit from the cheap seats, that particular revision strikes me as we had a much larger plan in mind, and this is what we could get sort of the banking industry to sort of sign off on.
This has been, they've tried to pass this bill. So I worked with the Consumer Federation, and they've been trying to pass this bill for multiple years now. And so this was the first year we were able to, first year I carried it, and the first year we were able to get it all the way signed by the governor, which we're very excited about. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of cleanup on it now because already banks are trying to figure out how they can game the system and offer it and then take it down immediately and put it up again a week later for rock bottom prices again.
Well, to go to the 67%, unfortunately, what's allowed to be the determining factor as to what is the value of the house, the market value of the house, is ridiculous. It's any realtor can just tell them. They can use any auto evaluator. So if Realtor.com says it, it's suddenly true. Right. Or they can use their own auto evaluator. That's going to lead to all kinds of problems. Now, I also think of a bank, again, you guys who know this know my wife's real estate attorney, so these are the conversations we have in my house at night. There's going to be, before the year is out, probably before the month is out, there will be a bank who violates that for sure. And they're going to violate it saying, we didn't violate the law because we had this valuation that makes no sense and doesn't follow any of the comparable sales, but we had this valuation. Now, according to my wife, who's a real estate attorney, that's really fertile grounds for a lawsuit. And there are going to have to be a couple of these that establish this law. That this is not just the law, but this is the common use of the law. And, judges they're not crazy. They're not great about foreclosures. They don't want to step too far out of line. Nobody wants to, make new law over this if judges can avoid it. Attorneys like to make new law. Judges don't. My wife tells me all the time. But, the law is the law is the law, and the bank has to follow it. And if they are abusing a tenet of the law in order to wrap it around the way they want to make it work, I think it's going to ricochet back at them because clearly the intent is to be at 67% of fair, it says right in it, fair market value. Yeah. But how they're determining fair market value, is, I think, up for question until it gets sorted out. But it doesn't matter. It's still another tool. It's another weapon we have in our bag. It's another tool we have in our kit.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I got a whole bunch more to ask you about when we get back here. There's a whole bunch more to talk to us to totally get through the whole show with this. So you guys, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. We got to go to breaks. We're going to hear from some of the advertisers now. So please listen through the break. And if we also keep in mind, when you do support the advertiser, you support the show. I appreciate that. So please do that. We appreciate it all the time. If you have any questions, as always, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, whatever works best for you guys. I'll answer your questions always. You can call me at 661-714-1400. That's my personal cell phone. As always, please don't call them on the air. If I don't answer, text me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And again, thank you guys for listening. Listen through the break. You're listening to KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening through the break. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix with me. We used to call it The Real Estate Fix with Rich because I just like my name that much, I guess. But The Real Estate Fix with your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Thank you guys for listening through the break. And our last segment here, those of you who've been listening, we have Pilar Schiavo, our assembly person from District 40, I got to get that straight, which is where we all live, at Santa Cruz Valley and part of the San Fernando Valley. And those of you who are listening, she did something fantastic, especially for those of us who spend our lives trying to keep people out of foreclosure. There's a bill that just passed called AB 2424 that drastically changes the amount of tools that we have and the way foreclosures work in the state of California. It is probably, it is from my point of view, the most significant legislation on this topic since the California Homeowner Bill of Rights in 2008, 9, and 10. It is that big a deal. And for those of you who knew what it was like before the Homeowner Bill of Rights, it was the Wild Wild West. So every time we have one of these, the ones that actually favor the consumer, which are the hardest ones to get passed, I'm sure, because you're fighting up against a rather large and entrenched banking lobby, I'm sure, and a lot of political interests who have no desire in helping the consumer, which is why these things take so long. So thank you for getting this done, because pushing that boulder up the hill must have been a hell of a thing. But the point is, it's here now, and it changes things. The biggest difference from my point of view is that there are a lot of things we're going to talk about, but it bounces out the 121 days that you had, or 111 days that you had, to 191 days, because you get an extra 80 days effectively out of this. So this is a huge, huge deal. It also gives you the ability to sell your house rather than losing it in foreclosure. There's all kinds of stuff that's packed in here. And they also have to sell it for fair market value, or at least a percentage of fair market value on the first go. So I have a feeling that part of the bill is going to evolve, but it's at least a very, very good start. All of this stuff some of it's kind of whole, as ready and whole as it is, but the rest of it's a really good start in the right direction, which we have not had up until then. I'm probably more enthusiastic about this than most people you talk to.
I love
24 because it seems so boring. But for me,
you're so close to how this impacts people, and I think that's why you're so passionate about it, which is great.
Well, we were talking. I'll tell you the story real quickly. We had one we were about 35 days out. They had scheduled the foreclosure date kind of farther out, because she is in her 70s, and that was them trying to be polite. And it's really, without boring you with the whole story, it is a mistake on the bank's part. This never should have been a foreclosure. There was an error made. It's an accounting error. It is very easy to fix. But meanwhile, they're freaking her the heck out. And she's going to have a stroke while this is going on, because every time she turns around, somebody else is calling her, telling her she's losing her house. So we were getting close to we're quite at the deadline. We were getting closer than I'd like, and certainly closer than she would like. And they'd filed the NOS. And that was the 5th of this, this first week of this year. And that was when I heard of AB 2424. Oh, we can use this. This is fantastic. We sent the letter to the trustee, which now, by the way, those of you who are going to use this, CR has put out a series of letters. There are 2 that are great that you can actually use that quote chapter and verse. And they talk about, it's actually manifested, AB 2424 manifests as Civil Code 2924. You gotta be able to quote that with the trustee. But it bought her an extra 45 days. And in that time, we already got the accounting fixed. She's no longer in foreclosure. Problem solved. Amazing. So in that case, it was just kind of a stress thing more than anything else, because I think we could have prevented the foreclosure otherwise. But right away, this bill becomes a law, and we've already got it in the field. We got another client we were using it for as well, a little more difficult circumstance. But having an extra 80 days is huge. It is massive, because in that 80 days, we've already run out through a lot of what would have been the traditional time frame. So that the mindset in the industry is 90 days, 21 days. That's kind of how they look at it. So to have an extra 80 days that you can just kind of throw into the middle of this is unbelievably useful. I mean, on the second case, the bank is already backing off. It's Celine Financial. They're already backing off. They gave us, we're talking to a senior vice president now instead of the regular single point of contact, because we quoted the law and they went, and so now all of a sudden it's going a lot quicker. And I'm very sure we'll get traction out of that. So that's 2 people I can point to right away that I know this law that you sponsored, this will save their homes. It is literally that simple. They will have a home 6 months, a year from now that they would not have otherwise had it not been for this law. It doesn't get much more direct than
I
that.
love
So
that.
thank you.
I love that.
And I don't
it's
have
nice
to,
to hear.
well, I also don't have to go looking for a rental in the current market for them, which is really difficult. Not
So
something I
hard,
want to do.
especially right now after the fires.
Oh
It's
God, yes.
nearly impossible.
Oh my God.
I
Well, also
know.
rents in our town, the average rent for a 3-bedroom house now is almost $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
These are guys, we were talking about this before off the air. These are guys who their payment is $2,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
They can't go to a $4,000. So now they're not going to be in a house anymore. They're going to be in an apartment.
Right.
If we can find one. And also they have to qualify coming out of a foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck getting a rental with a foreclosure that was, 6 weeks ago. I mean, it's just a mess. So this solves so many problems. It actually solves more problems than it creates, which is wonderful. So I got a couple other questions I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. My wife told me I have to ask this one. Did the banks fight the bill? They had to have.
Yes.
There's no mortgage bank that wants
Of course
to see
they
this.
did. Yes. And the chamber and everyone. But, to their credit, at first, what we were hearing is this really wasn't an issue. And then, there was acknowledgement of this being an issue, and people really came to the table and worked with us to get the bill through. And so, it's very, very difficult to move a bill with a lot of big opposition. And so we were able to, work with them to address some of their kind of technical concerns. Went down a little bit on the sale percentage.
Compromise. Politics is the art of compromise,
I
right?
know. And but the difference was having a bill or not having a bill.
Amen.
And so we appreciated that they in the end were able to work with us, and the chamber also worked with us, and we were able to address concerns and be able to move it forward and get that signature.
Well, since I am not a politician and not writing bills, and it's easy to do this from the cheap seats, I have to explain to clients all the time, there is no constituency that is pro foreclosure. However, there are people like the Chamber of Commerce and there are people like the banks who are so, I'll just say risk averse to try to be nice about it, that they want their money out the minute there's any kind of bump in the road at all.
Mm-hmm.
And life just doesn't work that way. And by the way, your money is pretty secure. California's a pretty safe place for real estate.
Yes.
We've seen a 30% run up in the last 4 years. I think your money's safe. You can wait a little bit longer to let them sort it out. Also, you're better off keeping them in the house because you're going to make more money servicing the debt than you are by liquidating the debt. I don't care what, I keep saying this all the time. It doesn't matter what business school you went to. 6% of something is still better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
So you still make more money servicing the debt. And if the house has to be sold, then the house has to be sold and you liquidate it that way. It is still better than a foreclosure because it takes longer and then you have to do an eviction. So this is better for the bank. That's what kills me about this sort of thing. This bill isn't just better for the consumer. Obviously it is. It's also better for the banks. They are better off doing this. They are better. Well, I argue with banks a lot. And I find most people go wrong when they're trying to do their own thing. They go to the bank with what they need. I can't make the payment. I need you, bank, to do this for me, which is, you can't talk to them like that. You're not going to get anywhere. You have to go to the bank and say, this is why this plan is good for you, bank, because if you follow your plan, this is what it looks like financially. If you follow the plan we're suggesting, this is what it looks like. More is better than less. And it also has the added benefit of keeping the client in the house. So everybody wins. But it's hard to explain to clients sometimes where that constituency lies that is actually pro foreclosure. It's not because the banks are evil and they're looking to make your life a horrible place. That's not their stated goal. It's just they're about the money. That's all they're about. That's just what they do.
It's their business.
Well, like being mad at a bank for acting scummy about money is like being mad at a shark for swimming. It's just what they do. And I use this example all the time. When a shark bites a surfer, it doesn't go, that guy's a single father of 5. I probably shouldn't eat him. A shark thinks, I'm hungry, that's food, that's it. And that's kind of the way the banks react. And that's the only way they react. So a bill like this slows that process down and gives you other options as a homeowner, somebody in foreclosure. Okay, what else would you like to have seen in the bill? Is that a dangerous question to ask? Is that going to get you in trouble? I hope so. All about friends here. Go ahead.
I mean, I think some of the cleanup we're doing to prevent the kind of game playing that's happening right now, where they'll it gets to the point where the bank is putting it up for sale, but then a week later they take it down and they put it up again for whatever price they originally wanted to put it up for, at a lower price. And so so making those a lot of times in the legislative process, there will be cleanup bills that come after to kind of fix some things that you didn't anticipate or didn't expect to happen. And so I'm glad we're doing that this year. And I think there's a lot of unity around making those adjustments too, which is great.
Thank goodness. We guys have heard me talk about this all the time. California, this statistic, I'm going to have this tattooed on the back of my head. California has, and I know you know the statistic because you started Bridge to Home. So California has 30% of the country's homelessness population, yet we have 12% of the country's overall population.
Yes.
Why are the numbers so far out of whack here? And I think the answer to that question is stuff like this.
Housing prices, I know. And just a correction, I did not start.
Oh, one of the founding members.
Not Bridge to Home. I co-founded another homelessness organization, but we've helped fund Bridge to Home and bring funds to them.
Thank you for cleaning that up. My mistake.
Yeah.
I have 22 on my staff after chat.
But it's an important. One of the reasons I work a lot on housing bills, and we've done a number of housing bills to address housing affordability, remove red tape, transparency, all kinds of things that we need in that space, is because I have worked on homelessness quite a bit, and
you've been there, you've seen it,
and I see that connection, right? That connection between. One of an attorney who spoke at our press conference when we had a press conference on this bill talked about. One of his clients, she had a home that she lived in. She was 86 years old. She had a rental property as well. They started foreclosing on her, and she had, worked at the post office, done like what she was supposed to do, and then fell on hard times, and they foreclosed on both of them. They were both valued at $1.6 million, and they sold them for $205,000.
Oh my God.
And she was on the verge of pushing her things in a cart down the street. That's how bad it was.
Well, they stole nearly $800,000 from her.
It's a clear line foreclosing on seniors, and seniors are the fastest growing population in the homeless population.
Most vulnerable, yeah.
Yes. And so, examples like this, there's a clear line leading to homelessness when you're foreclosing on seniors.
Well, I know you can't say this, but I can't. In your example there, the bank stole $800,000 from her. They may have stolen it legally, but it's still immoral and unethical. It's still theft in my view, because it made no difference to the bank, but it made a huge difference to this woman who now is having trouble surviving.
Right.
We could do better than that.
Right.
We simply can. And that's what a lot of this bill does. So how about, there's another good one. Any other legislation in the works, particularly to help homeowners who are in trouble, other than cleanup stuff, or people who want to become homeowners in California? What's coming up?
So we're working on a bill. We have a number of bills that we're working on around housing. We're still kind of finalizing that, so I can't really talk about it.
Okay, but there's other good stuff in the pipeline.
But we have more good stuff, and definitely more consumer protection stuff. We've had a great partnership with Consumer Federation and the good work that they do. So we're trying in every way that we can to make sure we're putting money back into people's pockets.
Yeah. Okay, this is a question for me. Car Legal do a really great podcast called Legal Matters Podcast. If you're into real estate, it's fantastic. For those of you who are realtors who are hearing my voice, you should listen to this. It's fantastic. You want to stay up on these things, listen to Legal Matters. But Legal Matters, the last podcast, they said something which is interesting, and I wanted to ask you, since you authored the bill. They said that AB 2424 doesn't apply to short sales. Here's why I think it does. I'll make the argument. You tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. A short sale, those of you who are listening, you don't know this, a short sale is when you're going to sell the house for less than is owed on it because you can't meet the debt. Still better to do a short sale than have a house go to foreclosure, better for you and better for the bank. That's what a short sale is. Now, I think the theory is you can't use AB 2424 to get more time out of it. It's a short sale because the the foreclosing party isn't being made whole. All right? So if it's a short sale, not of a first mortgage, but of a second or other junior lien, in other words, the first will be made whole with the sale, why wouldn't AB 2424 apply? They're going to get their money out of it. They're going to be made whole. They're the ones who are foreclosing. The second of the guys who are going to take the hit aren't.
Yeah.
So my theory is, I know this has to be tested by a judge. Every time I say this, my wife tells me it has to be tested in court. And we may be the first case for that because we got one that may go that route. We'll see. But because what they said on Legal Matters is that it doesn't apply to short sales, and they just dropped it. And I've tried to follow up with them. They haven't gotten back to me yet because I think I'm asking a question I want to do some more research on. Because to my way of thinking, it looks to me like if they're being made whole, if I read the bill correctly, then AB 2424 applies. So if it's a short sale, meaning that a junior lien holder is taking a hit. Are they
saying it because it's not considered a foreclosure?
I think they're looking at a short sale as being only one loan. And because that loan, who's also the foreclosing party, is all one and the same, they're not being made whole, then it doesn't apply. Because you're going to have to take a discounted amount. But my read of it says it would still apply because they are the foreclosing party and they will be made whole, which is what they get out of this. What they get out of the stall is they get to be made whole. What the consumer gets is more time to make them whole, to look at it from the bank's point of view. So I would think it would still apply. You think so?
I agree with you.
Oh, good. I just want to bet. Janie, now we know who's making dinner tonight. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. She's a better cook than I am. So you've helped us both out. So thank you about that. We talked about how AB 2424 protects potential equity, gives them an opportunity to sell. We talked about the 67% thing. So I think we've covered most of the stuff that I have to cover in this. How can I help? What can I do? Because I do a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of people we work with. We've got a whole network we built up over the last 30 years doing this.
Great.
Anything we can do to help, because anything that relieves the pressure on this, I'm more than for.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on the show so people know about it, because we just want people to know about it. We want both people who are, facing with that kind of tragic situation of possible foreclosure to know about it, and also attorneys who are helping families and people who are facing foreclosure to know about it. So as much as you can, share the word, get the word out. Any associations that can share the word as well.
We've just met, but when I start talking, I don't stop. So that's a pretty safe bet. And those of you who know me are laughing when you're hearing this, because trust me, everybody's going to know about it. So the numbers to remember: AB 2424 is the bill. It manifests as Civil Code 2924. So if you need to yell at a bank about it, you want to talk about Civil Code 2924. If you want the letters, I have them. CAR, California Association of Realtors, put together letters for us to use for exactly this purpose, and how to use it and how to implement it. I'm happy to share those with you guys if you need help out there. Just give me a call. I'm at 661-714-1400. I see we're running out of show here, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming in. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing the good word about this bill.
Please.
We're hoping it helps a lot of people.
I'm just making noise. You did the work. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. So I see we're running out of time. We're going to wrap up the show. So staff, I'm going to hit the heart out and you guys get free lunch. You've been listening to KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. I'm Rich Szerman, and this is The Real Estate Fix. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good week. Be good humans.